everybody, welcome to Tina's. This is where we normally have our Barnhouse readings. So slide out of those DMs and slide into this video. We have 4 great readers for tonight, and they are...
Gabrielle Grace Hogan, Lindsay Turner, Mika Yamamoto, Nod Hindi.
Love them all. Enjoy the show.
Hi everybody, I'm Gabrielle Grace Hogan. You can call me Gabby. I want to say thank you to Kevin, Barnhouse, and The Series Is Not on Netflix for inviting me to record this video for you all to enjoy. This is a really scary time to be a person, let alone a poet, but I'm really grateful for spaces like this who see poetry for the ways that it can be community driven and the ways that it can be selfless and be a thread for people to come together. So I'm really happy to be a part of that. And I'm going to read a few poems for you, if that's okay, from the glamour that is my parents' basement, where I am currently quarantined. So yeah, the first poem I'm going to read for you is actually going to be published by Barnhouse later this year, which is very exciting, and I thought that would be apt to start this video with this poem. So this is Self-Portrait of the Poet High on Halloween. You can see it reflected in my glasses. We stand for the asphalt dimples as if in a child's cheek, bronzed in the slant of the street lamps' dancing skirts. The air has sweetened to a cold tang. Yes, it's comfortable here in the middle of the street. I don't know what any of us are supposed to be, other than high. Tonight, I'm alive only to be alive. I know less about myself in this moment than I do about what makes the flamingos pink, or what makes anything else not, what makes a bird fly that I do not possess. Consider planes, these pterodactyls of the now. Consider the whimper that supersedes the baying of your vault into the sky, that milky silence shared with strangers who don't give a shit if someone you love is dead. Consider this Boeing 747, swan-necked but unfeathered, of which you are just a gizzard in its gut. Consider how every mode of transport is never unlike an animal. Plane a bird, train a serpent, car a hunching bear or dog. Can't pretend that which doesn't have a face doesn't have a name of its own, one we didn't give to it. I know you've stopped listening, because you think I'm just high. But consider if I wasn't. Wouldn't you then peer into this baby girl pink mouth of mine, to see my tongue bloating like the fall-fattened moon, see my flesh-toned plumage take flight without me, call this poetry instead of rambling, call it song instead of noise, call it by its own name. Thank you. The next couple poems I'm going to read are written to parallel one another, but they don't have to necessarily. But they both take inspiration from the Christine and the Queen's EP La Vita Nuova, which I'm probably mispronouncing. 4 years of high school French did nothing for me, clearly. You don't have to have listened to the EP or seen the music video to understand it, but I do highly recommend that you do. It's a work of art. But yeah, so these two poems, the next two poems I'm going to read are sort of together in that same vein. So this first one is At This Critical Hour, Onism. In the beginning there is a gorge, but we think it's a collarbone. There is a disco ball, but we think it's a uvula. A shape-shifting dog is still always at the end, a dog. In the beginning there is a vampire, and then, so suddenly, a knot of ash. Intestinal spasm of Texas sun, I am yet to grow accustomed, so used to the blue-white microwave beam of Missouri winter, silver as a coin. I've killed not a thing, but as far as you know I've tried. Texas summer is hot and golden as piss. There's no natural order. There's only my teeth sunk in girl waste, leaving little bruise stamps. I have mourned too many would-be bodies for a lifetime, my yellowed alligator tooth snagged on a skirt thread. In the beginning there is nothing to be forgiven. I rotate to French pop in a leather suit, sweating rhinestones, trailing limbs behind me. Cowboy masculinity, soft-bodied porn monster. My hands licked clean in a soft butch gasp. I've killed not a thing, but as far as you know, I had to. In the beginning there is a book of baby names. There are pronouns in reckless abundance. There is a swear lost to language now. This next one is this is the renunciation of your shame. At the end, there are no more questions that don't have answers. At the end, Sappho buys Radcliffe Hall a drink. In my mouth is my own fat, pulsing forehead vein. I bite down. Burst. My alligator tooth shifts position. At the end, every girl I've touched escapes apocrypha in a plume of lavender doves. I roll something up that glitters and smoke it. Since last we spoke, I lost a virginity to a synthesizer. I made music on a roof. I took my shirt off on a beach. My gold-drenched nipples are available to stream everywhere at midnight. The handsome woman sings in French, kisses my jowls, manifests me. She bloodlights me with her strong jawline, drains my toxins, licks my neck under the strobe lights. At the end, there is no deviance to draw upon. People like people now. The handsome woman presses a thumb to each of my stomach hairs, blesses them. I am canonized in her neon. I am adorned in her ruffled shirt. At the end, all the dykes I could have been, I've been, and they thank me with tongues in my eyes. At the end, the cephalopod is happy. It regrets none of its limbs. Thank you. With 7 minutes already, I'm going to read you one more poem. This is maybe my longest poem, and it was published this past December in Best Buds Collective by my good friend Mark Cagini, which was a really exciting publication for me to have. One, because I love Mark and I love Best Buds, but also because this poem was really outside of my comfort zone, but towards a comfort zone that I want to get into. Yeah, that's a lot of explanation that isn't really necessary, but just want to say again, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you've enjoyed so far and enjoy this one as well. This is Omniscience as Mirror. In the art museum, my favorite exhibit is the furniture, art that was built only for function, and most of all, the mirrors. What flamboyant arrogance to have mirrors in an art museum. Still, I pass through them, or seek to, in my own cocksure way. The bees loose in my gut rustle at the thought of staring long enough into this mirror that someone will stare back. They try to convince me that nobody's there, but I know they're wrong. The fingerprints are proof enough from a hand that once wasn't decaying. The plaque reads that this dresser is made from mahogany, ebony, oak, mirrored glass, gilded bronze, leather, and brass. The plaque reads that the dresser is French, from 1805. I think about her, some beautiful French duchess who was born, lived, and died long before I was an embryo. She leaned forward once, touched the cloud of her neck, fixed dust fuzz from the glass between her forefinger and thumb, and flung it as far from her as she could. I am in danger of falling in love with her. What else is new when it comes to me and imaginary women? No one would be surprised if I died here, waiting to be kissed by a spirit. It's very me. I read a Vice headline once, inside an underground women's mud wrestling ring in Chicago, and laughed at how unironically I would enjoy watching. I won't tell my Duchess this, partly because there is too much context that I can't give her, but also so she will not realize just how vulgar I can get. She deserves better than me, mud-caked and baggy-eyed, but I don't want her to know that. I, wing of ceiling fan, supple jellyfish, waveform, shake. When I pull her from the mirror, bring her into this world like a ring loosed from the thumb. We will nestle against the museum's one Monet, pretend to listen to Frank Ocean, and maybe once, or even twice, laugh. I'll tell her they call me a jawline prophecy. That's what I'll tell her. That everyone says I have a jaw that could cut glass sexy, right? And she won't understand, because she only speaks French. And she'll turn to the painting, as is custom in a museum, and its colors. Aquatic greens, damp reds, a purplish blue so fine you could smear it. And I will, to make the painting an imitation of its old self, call that a remix. Oh, damp lamplight leaking from the ceiling, pray for me. I need a tether stronger than the nipple hardening in the mouth. My Duchess, you have to go back. Don't try to stay, because the longer I sit here, the less in love with you I will be. That is purely scientific. She guides herself back through the frame with little goodbye. She does not try to stay. The mirror is now just a mirror. The mirror is not a portal. The mirror is a reflective surface. I am looking into the mirror and see only the dust floating between my face and my other face. I am looking into the mirror and see only myself. Thank you so much.
I'm going to read you a poem. Hey, welcome back! Wasn't that great? Next up, Lindsay Turner.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Turner, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, where it is snowing today, and I'm going to read some poems. Thank you to Barnhouse Journal for putting this together, and to my fellow readers in this virtual space in the future, and to you for listening. I hope everybody is healthy and well. I hope your family and friends are all healthy and well. I'm going to read some poems from my book, Songs and Ballads, which you could buy online from your local bookstore, which you should support. I'll read some poems from this book, and then I'll read some new poems. Song of Household Goods. Red sky, a warning. The cabinets are open in the domain of arrangements at the top of the building. Or pink sky, a reflection seen from the kitchen or from other rooms where the sunset isn't dangerous. The purchase is ordinary. Weather and colors perform their recycling through a range of arrangements. Red sky, a warning. Pink sky, a refuge. The order of the colors isn't really about a war. A range of arrangements demanding attention in the house above conflicts where nothing usually shudders. A domain of the products arranged in the cabinets and other things to buy when the bottles start feeling empty. Meanwhile, the sky, you'd have to see it, arranged by its colors but not saying anything. Risk management song. So we commissioned a document about sustenance in the city's pores, metaphors of food and skin for when the water rises. Wired the desirable apartments, caves and units, strange hotels, possible domesticities before the water rises. Commissioned a report detailing repose and densities for stones from a point of view superior to where the anger rises. Made visibility a scale, turned the painting toward the wall, sweating into its close face as if an angel rising. The window blew in, cracked triangles on the ground to figure choice or prominence's choiceless sharpness, angel's recognition. Turned style to a little pin, used to put down X and storm and X for where the air remains for when the water rises. Gathered all of us around glossy, invulnerable tables to hear and judge a list of songs the agents recognize. Yes, like you mean it. If the beauty of dancy horses has ever made you feel ill, say yes and mean it. If it has ever made you feel familiarly hollow, say so, say yes and mean it. Mean it, and mean tainted with desire, mean bought and loved beauty, mean loved women at bars, say yes and mean it. Or, on a beach in Texas, they have beaches in Texas, on a white beach in Texas, if you caught a red fish and you threw the fish back but you wanted to keep it, say yes like you mean it. Yes, and mean it, shaking your head no and then louder but reeling you in by the toes, by the forms, say yes like you mean it. When I ask if she likes being yours, I don't mean she doesn't like being it. Say yes and mean it. Song of the Towns. What they have in common appears only after you've been to some of them. At the end of the day, we were all very thirsty except for the baby who'd had some water earlier. What they have in common appears as fatigue you shouldn't have on rising. Must be something wrong, it appears. Dust over the air of the triangle of the boulevard and 2 diagonal streets running into it just after a rainstorm. The only piece that fits in here is shaped like a catastrophe, nevertheless small ornaments hanging straight in air in spite of. Sawdust, what dust from the paint. What dust on the lettered walls, red lights flashed in the dust at night, and a kitchen window dug into a wall so old it shone. Nevertheless, the dust is new in this house. Utilities sliding into dust. The water takes in the rust. These forces don't abandon space after it's been abandoned. Water everywhere. But thinking does not make it so. The grave officials say, shore up the bottom line. Pests in the town, bêtes d'orage in the wheat, a storm of them. A propensity for small spaces leads to global explosion even after quarantine. The town's been huddled in the wheat fields all this time, and the plain knows what and where we know. The problem of the bills that came with it. Civic expenses like plans and fireworks. The problem is that someone has to pay them, difficult to detect. Since forces don't abandon space, although it seems abandoned. Too smooth a tradition, too easy to realize and put them in. It's a waste of energy, but still there are these shapes to be filled, something to soothe the city while we were talking about it. And the celebrated town is just as empty as the other towns. The pace of slowing down appears with increasing speed. Shutters close faster again, singing forces through abandoned space. The aging system means a race to profit from abandoned space, while leaving it abandoned space, since forces don't abandon space, although it looks abandoned. Thinking does not make it so, the lot abandoned to the race. The curse is that it's here to stay, and all the grave officials say we thought you had abandoned. The shutters open on the shutters. The industries of fields and bugs are silent forces in the space. The series starts to overwhelm as it takes shape. So I'm going to read a couple of new poems from a manuscript called The Upstate, which is sort of about upstate South Carolina, where I used to live. I've been missing the spring there a lot, so I'll read a couple of poems that talk about trees. Spring poems. Wasted empty space. Spring light on a cold tin roof. It happens when the seasons change, the body's molecules all rearrange, an itchy feeling. You see the place as it has always been, or entirely monstrous. Frost-killed glory. the people under the rug, the ants in constant streaming lines, the roads you couldn't dream of crossing, the close rhyme of venal and vernal. Anyway, a little song to end on. Little song to end on. If you had a headlamp like a miner, if you had an ear tag like a cow, if you had a schedule like a mother, if you had a list of flowering trees. List of flowering trees. Saucer magnolia, southern magnolia, sweet bay, crepe myrtle, flowering dogwood, eastern redbud. Dogwood. The flat flowers looked a little childish, but I was grateful for their presence, like you'd be grateful sometimes if there were a child present. In the dogwood the light collected, toothy notches in the petals white as the sheets and pillowcases of which the person I married had many. Mostly I felt wounded, like there was a tiny stream of blood leaking, but going back in before there was too much harm. Rusty eye of the dogwood, pair of cardinals in the dogwood, with the light in it the dogwood seemed to want to make a rhyme. One more, I should say you can find that poem, The Dogwood, in the fantastic journal Oversound, and you can find the first poem I read from the new book and this poem up at the fantastic online poetry journal, The Volta. Last poem. Thanks again. The Capitals. In late June in the Capitals, I slept on different pillowcases, smelling the detergents they use in the Capitals. The question is, what do they do to merit living? I mean afford. It is pleasant and the roses growing in the front yard patches. A big yew tree, the nightbirds, the elegant streets. The question is, who does your money come from? The question is, whose loss? The question is, whose loves are torn like wet paper for your money, whose lines are crossed by it, who can't live the thing she wants, which is good and reasonable because of your money. The nightbird sings away beside a white row house. Your money makes someone want to work all the time. Turn your other cheek on your clean, stripy pillowcase. It smells like detergent, like your door closed to the outside of the capital city. The white roses and the dark green leaves coming up over the red brick wall. It is a garden, it is a cycle of toxic violence. It grows violence, or at least nothing to eat, nothing at all. It is a garden whose real lives are distanced in function of your money. Who among us, after all, has no pillow? In the evenings, they seal themselves up when the sky turns pink. In the evenings, they emerge and laugh as the sky turns pink. The empty stores are ways for your money to make more of it. When could we emerge into the evening just to be there? For example, your money holds multiple people in a space for a while. They could dwell and multiply and need your money. Your money has no border, so it makes one where it goes. Otherwise, you could pay to drink champagne by the border in a leather booth beneath the big sky turning pink. In late June, it is cold in the capitals, but people flock there for the skies. In late June, it is cold, but people have flocked anyway to make you money. In late June, it is cold, but your money has gathered all the people there to make you more. How is it still light out? Whose lives are rubbled, whose rubble never mine for your money, whose, what is drowned, exhausted, is fished out, is asphyxiated by the air, is slowly finished by the air, is acid in the water, in the food, the money, fishing in your toxic money, breathing in your bed, the money till it suffocates, is separated by your money, is detained by it and for it, is mined, is killed for. In late June in the capitals, I can confirm, your money is a thing and thriving. The late June evening and the sky turns pink. Jasmine, the white roses, some purple things I don't know how to name. In the capitals one day will your money fall silent ever, and the bird who sings at night will sing in the capitals, your money rising in the roses, the rubble, the stores, and everything is brimming full.
What's your favorite breakfast food?
I really, really like tomatoes. Like, I like to take the whole tomato and then, like, use my fist to, like, pound it out. And then I, like, scoop it up into my hand and I just slurp it up. What are you doing in that photo?
Pooping. How many times have you been drunk in your entire life?
Only once, and then never again, because I couldn't say the word Anna Karina, and it really made me feel sad.
If SpongeBob had only two pores, one inside of his left eyeball, the other on his ass, which pore would you prefer?
Ass.
Up next, Mika Yamamoto! Mika Yamamoto! Next up, Mika Yamamoto!
Panda. Panda showed up at Lena's house on Thursday, Mokuyobi, which translates to Day of Wood in Japanese. Fitting for a panda. At first, I didn't believe Lena when she told me the panda was Japanese. Pandas live in China, Lena. The only pandas in Japan are captive. But then she showed me the panda's passport. Can't argue with that. I searched the internet to see if any pandas had escaped the zoos in Japan. None had been reported. I even asked my high school friends in Tokyo. Nope. The Japanese tend to be very private about loss, though, and the few pandas in Japan are beloved and doted on by the populace. It would be a source of great shame for a zoo to lose their panda. Since a panda had obviously fled the country, this would be a great shame for the country, too. Knowledge of such loss would devastate, impacting the stock market for sure at the very least, causing mass suicide of shame at most. Some people would inappropriately try to shoulder the national shame. So possibly, preparing for this unlikely event, the zoo had had a hologram made of the panda to use until the animal had been found, or until it became clear the animal most definitely wouldn't be found. Luckily, pandas are always hard to spot, so it wouldn't be too suspicious if the panda was seen only in bits and flickers. In any case, the panda had arrived at Lena's and was definitely Japanese. Lena called me not because a panda was Japanese, but because a panda was a panda. I have a lot of children, a 3-pound chihuahua, and houseplants. I also have a bird sanctuary and teach elementary school for a living. She figured I have a lot of experience with living creatures. Oh, and I also tend a friendship bread starter. I wasn't very confident about how much help I would be with a panda house guest, but I felt like I understood Japanese house guests, so I gave her some advice for her Japanese house guest. Hospitality is very important for the Japanese, so you should be very gracious. Not that you ever aren't, you always are. Accommodate without appearing to accommodate. No. Over accommodate, as if all you've ever wanted to do in your entire life was host a panda. A Japanese panda, Lena said. Yes, a Japanese panda. Lena did not want to offend a Japanese house guest, and also she comes from a very gracious culture herself. So she was very kind to the panda. She had them come into her home, and because she only had a 1-bedroom, she gave them her room and slept on the couch, even though she had a new bed she loved very much. In return, Panda shed all over the bed and did not apologize. I think Panda complained that my bed was not comfortable, Lena whispered to me when I went to visit the day after Panda's arrival. It was 5 p.m, but the panda seemed to be taking a nap, so we were trying to be very quiet. Do they speak English? I asked. No, they don't speak at all. But panda very pointedly cracked their neck at breakfast. I was shocked. That is very un-Japanese, I exclaimed. I was embarrassed on behalf of the panda and our country. I didn't know what to do with this shame, so I poured Lena more tea, even though it was her tea, her teapot, her home, so I was out of line to do so. And even though her cup was still full, so the tea spilled over and created a puddle around the mug. I can't even, I said as I wiped up the tea with my sweater sleeve. That's just so... Extra? Lena offered. Yes, that's just so extra, as the kids would say. Right, I agreed, although Lena almost could have been my kid if I had been a teen mom, so I'm not sure which kids would say it and which wouldn't. Who does that? I asked rhetorically. Chapter 2. It was the third day of his stay, and Panda's behavior had not improved. They ate all of Lena's snacks. That's in addition to the 3 meals a day they demand, she told me as she turned on her electric kettle. I prefer a stovetop kettle myself. How do they demand? Do they speak now? No, they still don't speak at all, said Lena. So how do they demand? They come out of the bedroom and plop heavily into that chair you are sitting in right now, she pointed. I jumped up, then just as quickly I sat back down. They pound their fist once, then grunt. But, I said, I'm speaking the truth, Mika. If I don't get busy preparing food, they pound and grunt again. But that's so cliche, I cried. Nobody said this panda was original. No, nobody has claimed that. We sipped tea in silence. After a while, I told her I have found no new information about Panda or why they would be here. She nodded. I'm worried, I said, about how this will impact our friendship. What? Why? I feel responsible. She nodded again. I get it, she said. This is why we are friends. Both of us have gone through enough to know about unexpected burdens. They have weird consequences. I'm grateful she doesn't deny it. What's your limit? I asked. 8 days. Really? That's a long time. I've had demanding house guests before, she shrugged. I finished my tea. I'll call my realtor Don, I said. He's a very good realtor. He's used to demanding clients. He had to deal with me. That's a good idea, Lena said as she cleared our cups. We're both planners, so plans soothe us, even if they are dumb plans. Chapter 3. Don was bemused by my referral. So you want me to take on, as a client, this panda that just showed up on your friend's doorsteps? He chuckled. Don always chuckled. A Japanese panda, I clarified. What's he looking for? They. What are they looking for? A 1-bedroom? A house? What's their budget? What neighborhood? You need to ask them that. Do they speak English, this Japanese panda? They don't speak at all. At least hasn't. Don laughed. Well, how am I supposed to know what they want? Dan, I figured this is actually better. You always know what the client really wants better than they themselves do. But then they start talking and it ends up what they say they want is different than what they actually want. But now, because they said they want something, you have to show them all these properties. Since Panda doesn't say anything, I think it will save you time. You won't have to accommodate what they say they want. Dan thought about this. True, he agreed. I'll run some specs. I have some time next Thursday. I'll pick them up at 3.
Hey! Nor Hindi!
Hi friends, I hope you're all keeping healthy and well. This is Noor Hindi reading for Barnhouse. This series is on Netflix. Thank you Kevin and Andrew and all the good folks at Barnhouse for organizing this and putting this together during National Poetry Month. Happy National Poetry Month, happy poetry, happy April, happy snow in April. Super excited to be doing this, and thank you for listening if you are. I'm gonna read 4 quick poems for you today, and here we go. The first one is titled Fake Devotion, and I don't normally read this at readings, but I was thinking about this poem today. Fake Devotion. I loved my grandfather most while watching him pray. Beads looped around his fingers, he would pull toward his heart and whisper Quranic verse. The 99 names of God hung from his lips like lights on a chandelier. I long for that vibrancy, for his patient eyes which would watch Arabic words shatter on my tongue before becoming sound. I could never impress him. My Arabic is graceless, my prayers fake devotions. At his funeral, I read him the Fatiha because I couldn't remember much else. Not the way it feels to drop a prayer rug at my feet and search its fabrics for God. Not the way it feels to drench my body in water during wudu, or drink Zamzam water as a kid. Feel holy, unstoppable. The next poem I'm going to read is titled Against Death. Thank you again for listening. Against Death. After Xana died, I became jealous of the fireflies and kept smashing them against my forehead. I wanted my loneliness to be visible for people to see the yellow balloons I hid in my lungs. I couldn't breathe for a year. When they tore down her elementary school, we all lined up days later for bricks. We held them against our bodies. I'd like to think this is how we embrace our ghosts. Years later, it took my grandfather 3 days to die. I grew so bored, I left for ice cream. In the car, with the July sun soaking my back, I let my tongue protest death. Hours after my grandfather died, I wanted to take a photo of his body. His skin the color of faded marigolds. As a child, when my goldfish died, I mourned the entire ocean. My father told me children in Palestine die every day. Hours before dying from cancer, Jim said, "Take care of yourself." I said, "You too." When I visit graveyards now, all I think is grass and grass and grass. I see how long it takes forever to go nowhere. Maybe I've outlived my life, dear God, dear earth, dear clouds. Why should anything die? I want to stand in my garden and gaze at the sunflowers. Amen. Thank you for listening to that. Shout out to sunflowers. They're starting to like bloom this season. They're my favorites. And speaking of sunflowers, here is a poem sort of about sunflowers that's titled Summertime. I've carried a keep calm, carry on bookmark in my pocket for the last 22 days. Everyone wants to shake my hand. Hello, my name is Light. Look at how quickly I can love, unlove, pretend to love the sound of conversation. I once killed a lot of bees with a plastic bat. They invaded my friend's backyard, tiny sunlights quivering in the air. They were relentless, and it seemed we could fight for an unending number of days. I was 9 and the bees were dying, and we called my massacre bravery. Have you ever gazed at the center of a sunflower? It's so beautiful it should eat us alive. I dreamt I was fixing an elevator. It only went up forever and ever. I grew tired of its constant optimism, the persistence of everything. Sometimes it kills me. What you're probably hearing in the background right now is our house phone. Please excuse that. It's relentless. My grandma is actually napping right now, and I'm supposed to be playing secretary for her, but poems are more important. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you for listening to this. The last poem I'm going to read is What is Endless? What is Gold? I'm throwing a net at the sun, collecting sunshine. The sun wears an evil eye, it shines it in my face. At Home Depot, I steal all their yellow. Golden cricket, vanilla milkshake, upbeat cornstalk. I eat catalogs of paint samples, summer bliss, neon light, fuzzy duckling. My mother holds a dish sponge in her hand, soap suds in her eyes. When I say yellow, I mean death. When I say death, I mean to tell you about the pears, unripe and yellow. We used to throw them at the sky, watch them rotate in a cloud. As a child, I couldn't stop drawing the sun. Crayola, Crayola, where are you now? Then they took the sun from me. Daffodil, beehive, filtered moon, and sweet. Remember the band director chasing us with our instruments? Oh, trombones, oh, bumblebees. We made blueberries with our lemons. We made bow ties out of chokeholds. My mother wore too much perfume. Sometimes I suffocated, and the grass was so yellow, and the memories so sharp. We stuck them between our teeth like toothpicks, like streetlights, like the eggplants my mother would fry. Sprinkle salt on their bitter June day, golden ray, saffron strands, English custard paint. What I remember makes me tank, makes me hazard. When I say yellow, I mean yarrow, maybe yay, maybe fly. When I say yellow, I mean hope, I mean light, as in open your arms, stitch a net with me, my loves, together we'll catch the sun. I bet it tastes so sweet. Thanks again for listening to this series is on Netflix by BARNHOUSE. Thank you, Andrew, Kevin, and all the good people again at BARNHOUSE who are doing so many great things. Thanks.
Hey everybody! Thanks for coming. I don't know if you noticed, it's pretty windy out here. Thanks for coming. Keep BARNHOUSE in your hearts. Okay, we're done.
So do it again.
I'll make it organic. Wow, that was really some of my best work.
No, that was so...
That was very inorganic. I'm aware how acty it felt, because I'm an actor.